Hello, I'm Scott Bogey here with Orlando Prins, ahead of his upcoming fight at Cage Warriors 183 against Giuseppe Ruggeri. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for asking.
And how are you feeling ahead of this upcoming fight, knowing that you're going into the enemy territory?
There's nothing new for me.
Yeah.
And all my fights have always been the away fighter, so always going to enemy territory. So the crowd can't fight for him, so it's just going to be another fight for me.
And I guess you kind of experienced that last time against Harry Hardwick when you went to
Hmm.
his hometown for that title fight. I was actually in the crowd and you could feel the crowd was backing Harry and it was just a wee bit tension between you two.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't say like the crowd had anything to do with it. Of course, the atmosphere was electric,
Yeah.
but to be fair, I never feel any hostility from the crowd at all. Like, of course, they said like fuck you or blah blah blah, like or you're gonna lose or whatever. But like, it's just all part of the game, Like, I don't take it personal, and it doesn't really affect me too much.
And how did you feel like you did in that title fight? I know you weren't able to get the result you were hoping for, but how did you feel like the performance was?
Yeah. In hindsight, of course, you want to do like you want to perform,
Yeah.
but I had a lot of things leading up to that fight that really didn't go my way, which now are going my way, like in terms of training. Um, I got the fight short
Yeah.
notice, and I was all like, to be fair, I was actually expecting not to fight anymore. So I was like, not too strict on the diet anymore, not too strict on the training regime anymore. So my cardio wasn't what yeah, yeah, what it should have been, to be fair. And could have yeah, I could have done way better.
And
Preparing like 8 to 10 weeks for that fight would have been way better. Of course, an opportunity like that, you're not going to let slip away
yeah.
because it's a title fight in one of the biggest organizations in Europe, and you just have to take that, But in hindsight, the preparation wasn't up to par for this. And to be fair, he did a great job. He analyzed me really well, and he knew everything that I was going to do, and like he had an answer for everything. And we really didn't do too much researching for him. We watched a couple of fights, and I was I was a little bit too complacent, to be honest. I thought that I had the tools to beat him, and I was just going off my pure talent and not really doing the work like a professional. So lesson learned.
And you said you weren't gearing up to fight anymore. Do you mean just for the rest of the year, or did you mean like in general?
Well, for that card, so
Okay.
I was supposed to fight Malada Hadi, and they pulled out of the fight
Yeah.
like a few weeks prior, and I wasn't hearing anything from the matchmakers anymore, like in terms of getting a new fight. So it was pretty much a done deal. Like it was like, yeah, you're not gonna fight anymore. We're going to look to reschedule you for a future date after the summer, probably. So I was like, oh, like okay, uh, still training, of course, still like keeping up with the training, but not as strict anymore. Like when you have a fight. When you have a fight, you're like completely focused. At least, like I don't know how it is for other fighters, but for me, like I have a lot of things next to fighting. I have a business, and I teach at my own gym. So I have a lot of people I have to manage as well in the gym. So my life is not just training, So if I do not have a fight, like I'm taking a little bit of time off for training. So I thought there was not going to be a fight anymore, and ended up being a fight 10 days prior. So yeah,
And how
it is what it is, Like you can't take anything back from it, and I don't want to discredit any of Harry's accomplishment.
yeah.
He's an amazing fighter, an amazing champ. So yeah.
And how do you feel like with this fight against Ruggeri, how do you feel like he is different to Harry? Like how do you feel like he's gonna come into this fight?
Like he's way different. He got a way different style than Harry. Um, I think a lot of people like now think maybe they've discovered like a weakness in my game because of the Harry fight, but
Yeah.
like nobody fights like him. Like nobody has like the kind of cardio that he possesses. And I seen I seen him Giuseppe getting like tired in fights and getting out grappled and not being too comfortable with the stand up, not being too comfortable with the grappling. Like I think it plays really well into my game actually. So I'm really confident, and my training camp has been the best it's ever been. Like I've been allocating a lot of time towards my training this time, and I've actually had free camps leading up to this fight because like I kept like having fights canceled last minute, but
Yeah.
did full camps. And yeah, I think the compounding result of that is now coming in.
And I was going to ask you, how did the Thomas Paul fight fall through? Because I remember we had the fight, we heard about it, we got to I was at the venue, and I'm like, I don't remember
Yeah,
seeing that fight actually happening.
yeah, it was crazy actually. We did the weigh in and we did the doctor's
Yeah.
check, and everything was fine. And well, reloaded. I felt great coming in. Had a also had an awesome camp, awesome weight cut. Couldn't have been better. And I think it was an hour or something before we were supposed to go on the bus to the venue, and I got a call from my manager saying that the fight is off, and I'm like, no way, you're kidding. Like I was just eating my pre-fight meal, and yeah, we got the call that like he wasn't going to fight, and yeah, there was nothing they could do. So yeah, apparently he felt sick in the morning and didn't feel up to it, and yeah, decided to not show up for the fight. So yeah, it fucking sucks to be honest, because you're there already, you're
Yeah.
ready to fight, and to be fair, on fight day, like uh yeah, I don't know, like I would never cancel like on fight day, but yeah, that's me. Like if I didn't feel good, like I would just take my ass whooping like a man.
Yeah, I'm going to say, how draining is it? Because obviously, the fight game isn't cheap. You have to pay for that fight camp. You have to
Yeah.
then, for you had to get flights over to the UK to be able to fight him. How
Mhm.
much does that impact you just financially?
Yeah, like the thing is I'm not really fighting for the money, but I also don't want to lose money on it.
Yeah,
Fighting for me like is it's my passion, and of course I want to my passion is to fight the best fighters possible and to make the most out of make the most out of my martial arts career while I can still do it. The gym, that's my work. Like that's my income, and that's my source of yeah, that's my main source of income basically. But I'm spending a lot of money like to have these fights, not just a lot of money like having the camp, but also like taking time away from my business
yeah.
and like flying people over for the fight, flying coaches over. It isn't cheap, and I was there, and eventually I didn't get paid. Uh, I didn't collect my sponsor money either because I thought it wasn't fair to do so. So I lost a lot of money on that fight, actually.
So do you not even get like your show money?
I got my show money, but my show money like just barely covers like
Yeah.
the expenses that I put in. So yeah, I actually lost money on that trip.
And then, oh, how big do you think this fight is for the featherweight division? Because obviously in March, a lot of things could change. There's a lot of fights happening. There's, I think,
Mhm.
your Rome event, two events happening in Manchester 2 weeks
Yeah,
later, the London event. Do you feel like if Harry wins his fight in London, he defends that belt for that second time, that's him puts his ticket to the UFC. That then creates a vacant title slot. You probably have one half coming from that next fight versus Kilo Lopez. The other half,
yeah.
could it maybe be this fight that gets it?
I don't know. Like it could be, like it obviously depends a little bit on Cage Warriors' agenda.
Yeah,
Uh, Cage Warriors, they have like their guys that try to push, and obviously I understand that's the fight game. It's a little bit of politics as well. So I'm not sure. Like I'm not sure if they would like to push me for the title, if I would have a convincing victory. Um, you also have Solomon Simon still,
Yeah,
which is also yeah, which is all he's also on a crazy streak right now. We were supposed to fight last year as well.
on
So
top
I don't know.
card.
Maybe they're trying to rebook that fight. Maybe they're trying to make the Simon against Backley fight if they both win their fights. You know, like let them fight for the vacant. I don't know. Like it's there's a lot of things that could happen. Like I'm just taking it fight by fight. I want to take this fight. I want to make an impressive statement. Been out of the cage for almost a year, and we just want to get back in there and if I need to take another fight after this fight, I'll take another fight after this fight. Like I'm not too focused on the title right now.
And obviously, Cage Warriors is the biggest organization in Europe. That's no question. However, one of the question marks that could be brought up is the fact they do like to bring in their champions, well, not champions, their contenders from other
Yeah.
divisions, instead of bringing in what they have. I know you did have the fight in Cage Warriors. However, you
Hmm.
have people like Lopez. He came in, got that title shot immediately.
Yeah.
Harry's brother George, his fight in Manchester, they're bringing someone in from
Yeah.
North from
Well,
America.
to be fair, at least those guys, they're somewhat legit fighters.
Yeah,
I've seen them bring in like a lot of questionable fighters for like top contenders. For example, like guys like Luke Riley, they bring in like guys from outside. Well, they have like a lot of people in the division. Now, I know probably not a lot of people are queuing up to fight that guy, but there must be some guys that are willing to fight him. There must be that Nick Backley that like I can't like I don't see like how a guy like Nick Backley or Solomon Simon says no to that. You know, like to like a Luke Riley fight, for example. Like I don't like maybe it's me, but I think they could do a way better job of like making the fights more meaningful inside the division.
and then you can also state with Luke Riley, for example, Harry, he is the next contender. You have to fight him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think I don't think that problem is laying with Harry or George. I think they're willing to fight anybody,
No, yeah,
and I think they proved that already. But I think it's on Cage Warriors. I
oh
think
yeah,
Cage Warriors are they're doing like a really like slick job of like trying to
it's
bring
a
these
business
guys
perspective.
up to like yeah up to a good record and then like bringing them to the UFC, which is it's of course their right to do it. It's their organization. I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, you know. But like I think it will legitimize the organization and what the title means a little bit more if you would have like a ranking inside of the division and also having like the top guys fight each other in the division instead of like oh okay like Solomon he's just gonna fight like few random
Yeah,
guys like handpicked and then he's gonna go to the UFC or to Contender Series and for Bagley the same you know like now he's fighting and having a good fight which I like but you know like I think they're giving like too many
padded records.
uh yeah exactly you know I think it
And
should be more like the guys are fighting each other. Well, I said this in an interview before, but like with the Fuchenik, Paul Hughes, and Charrier, like triangle, you know, they all fight each
yeah,
other, and they were the top of the division, and they fight each other. You know, like and that's how it's supposed to be. And then you grow as a fighter from that. Of course, somebody has to take a loss, but one or two losses won't define you in MMA, I think. It's not boxing, you know, like you could take a loss.
yeah, I was going to bring that comparison up because in boxing, if you do lose that one fight, it is a massive weight of your stock completely gone.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is because the reason that it's not like boxing is because there is so many different ways to lose? So it doesn't, and you always can learn from it. It's just that excitement factor.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think there are loads of fighters that are super entertaining and are super good and have like losses on their record. Look at Marab. Marab
Yeah,
has like a couple of losses on his record. I'm not sure how much, but he has a few losses on his record,
and Holloway as
even
well.
in the UFC, outside of the UFC, and he's still like he's the best bantamweight in the world right now. Like it, sometimes you need a loss like to learn.
Yeah,
And Harry has like some losses too. I think George has a loss because they're battle tested. Like Fuchanik has a loss, Paul Hughes has a loss. Like a lot of those guys have losses, and I think you need that um, to really. Of course, you don't need it, but it's going to make you a little bit more battle tested. You know what you're
yeah.
made of, like after a fight like that.
And do you feel like nowadays it's no longer just the UFC that's the highlight? You are starting to get other organizations like the PFL, who is starting to try and build up their reputation slightly. You
Hmm.
also have Paul Hughes, who chose the PFL route, but you now are seeing quite a few fighters choosing the PFL over things probably like the UFC.
Yeah. Uh, of course, everybody got to do what they got to do. Like you fighting is a short window, and if you're a prize fighter and you're really about the money, you have to do what's best for you and your family. Like if the PFL offers you 3 times as much as the UFC, you have to do that. But um, if it were to me, like if I could choose between UFC or PFL, I'll choose the UFC any day because it's just the most prestige.
Yeah,
Like but that's the way I look at it. I'm fighting for prestige, not money. Also had an opportunity to go to some other European organizations instead of Cage Warriors, but I wanted to go to Cage Warriors because the belt is so legitimate over
yeah.
here. Like if you get here, yeah, it's a legendary belt. The status is like unmatched. So that's the reason why I chose to stay here instead of like chasing money in different organizations.
And I think another reason why that belt is so prestige is the fact you get that more exposure on that fight pass that UFC has.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Also, like it has a lot of history, and a lot of the guys that held that belt are now doing great things. So they went on to do great things, in the sport. So it's a major thing, and I think that belt shouldn't be taken lightly. Of course, you have other organizations now right now in Europe that are like really competitive, like Octagon or
Yeah,
KSW. I think they make a compelling case to be like the number one organization in Europe right now, but it's more because of the fact that right now they are not trying to compete with the UFC. They're trying to make the best fights over there that are possible. They're trying to make number one against number two or number three against number four. Like really big fights with a lot of risk for both parties, and not just their top guy against number 10 or number 12, like which has like zero risk for the top guy, for example.
exactly. And do you feel like how it has the Dutch MMA scene, how has that been so far? You already have Alistair Overeem, who was in that UFC,
Hmm.
starting to bring that legacy into the Dutch MMA. You now have De Ridder, who is doing his thing in the UFC. How
Yeah,
is the Dutch MMA scene doing so far?
I think it's growing. The thing is, in Holland, we need to step away from the kickboxing a little bit more. We're a little bit too prideful about the kickboxing and like the Dutch striking, but
Yeah,
it's yeah. In MMA, you cannot use that kind of striking that we're accustomed to in Holland too much. In Holland, they use the kickboxing style a lot with the close guard, and it's a way different style, a style that is only suitable for kickboxing itself. And I think because of that, you do not see the transition to MMA that well. The people that are in MMA from Holland are primarily different kind of fighters. Like for example, the Ritter. He's like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with a judo background. Like he had no striking background at all. Um, and then you see a guy like, for example, like Yarno Aarons, who's like a little bit more the opposite. He was more of a striker,
yeah,
but because of the jiu-jitsu side, like he couldn't get it done in the UFC. You know, like the grappling and jiu-jitsu is super important. You know, like, and we have to, as a country, we have to start embracing that a little bit more, I think.
And do you feel like having that organization like LFL just helps bringing up that talent?
For sure. LFL is doing an amazing job. You have LFL, you have the Cage Warriors Academy,
Yeah,
which are already like two organizations where amateur fighters can put up a lot of get a lot of experience, which wasn't there when I started. When I
yeah.
started, there were like only regional events. There was no like events that were on topology, so it was really difficult to build up a decent record or like a decent amateur career. And I think these are the correct steps. LFL is doing a great job. They already brought a lot of people to the UFC, to the Contender Series, and they're trying to make good fights as well, not try to hand pick fights too much. They're actually trying to put on some good fights, I think. And of course, it's always dependent on what guys you can get because a
Yeah.
lot of the best talent are is already with Cage Warriors or with Octagon or with KSW. So they're kind of like stuck with the leftovers. But I think give it a few years and I think they'll have more people like signing for like LFL and have like a little bit more of a competitive scene in Europe.
Exactly, because like you're saying, Aaron's is back there. You
Yeah,
have Louis Sutherland, who's the co-main event. I think it's this weekend, and
yeah,
you also have Tom Breeze. So they are starting
yeah.
to
Those
get,
are three big names, you know.
yeah. So they are starting to build that reputation of we
Hmm.
can start to try and compete in the next year or two.
Yeah. So it's on those guys, you know, like for example, for Yarno, it's a big thing, you know, because like he's fighting in Holland, main eventing. It, it's a must-win fight for him, you know, like because like he puts Holland he represents Holland
Yeah.
and it's also his ticket back to the big show. So he has to perform in this fight.
And how did you start to get into MMA?
How did I start in MMA?
Yeah.
So I started martial arts when I was a little bit younger, because of my brothers, and they introduced me, and I was like a big K1 fan. And at one point, like the kickboxing, it started to yeah, it started to my interest started to fade a little bit. I saw the UFC and I saw what they were doing. I saw like a fight from Minotaur Nogueira. He choked somebody unconscious, and I was like, man, this is crazy. This is something I need to learn. Like you can actually fight on the ground. So I started to look into it. Found out there was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I was like, yeah, okay, I got to learn this. Started training kickboxing again, and told my coach I wanted to fight MMA, and he was like, "Yeah, you got to do kickboxing first." So did like a bunch of kickboxing fights, started learning a little bit of grappling, but there was no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu where I'm from, so we just had to learn ourselves a little bit. And then I started with a club. There were like a few blue belts at that club, and then from there just snowballed. You know, like we started our own club when we was white belts. We just teach each other and there was no MMA scene either in the city where I'm from. Like there were no fighters, so we basically just had to learn from trial and error. Like when I was fighting in Cage Wars, when I made my pro debut, I had only training partners, which I've teached Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and MMA myself. Like I had no professional training partners. I had no training partners at that point that had a fight. Like all of my training partners were just like white belt or blue belt students who just recently learned like a little bit of MMA. Oh, maybe had a little bit of kickboxing experience, but had no experience at all. And now I have guys in the gym that are like 3-0 professional. One is fighting at Cage Warriors as well. One is
Yeah.
fighting at LFL. Is 4-1, and I have a bunch of amateur fighters now. And so now, like everything is different.
Exactly. And like you're saying, the guy that's fighting in Cave Warriors, Nick, he's got a fight coming up as well
Yeah,
against who which is a massive fight. I think it's Jack the Ripper, Jack Humphreys.
yeah. It's a nice fight. It's I think it's a stylistic good matchup for Nick because they're both grappling heavy. But Nick, yeah, Nick is a beast. He's one of my oldest students. He's been training with me since white belt, and now he's a brown belt, and he's just super good. Got hands of stone, and has that killer instinct. Like I think he's going to get it
Yeah,
done.
exactly. And it's definitely got not just fight of the night, but fight of the year contenders
Oh,
contention.
for sure. Yeah.
And are you just looking to stay active this year? Is that what your plan is for 2025? Is as long as
Uh,
injury free?
yeah. Well, granted, I stay injury free. I would like to have free fights. Would like to have the fight now in March, of course. Um, and then hopefully, if I get out there injury free, like get back in there like just before the summer, and then maybe end of the year, something November, that would be ideal for me.
And what's your take on obviously the UFC featherweight champion Ilia Topuria? He is talking about wanting to have that super fight against Islam. Now there is an argument of he's beaten Volkanovski, he's beaten
Uh-huh.
Holloway, he does deserve it. However, technically he only has that one title defense. What do you make of fighters champions that early getting those super fights?
Yeah, it of course it's you have to take it case by case. I think in his case, actually, no Ilya, I trained with him. He's absolutely amazing, and
Yeah,
I think he could get it done. I think that like of course there's Diego Lopez still in featherweight.
yeah,
I think he beats him easily. To be fair, even though Diego is yeah, he's a beast. Like I really love his style, but he does just too much. His boxing is on a completely different level. He still hasn't shown his jiu-jitsu yet, which is also really good. And I think that is going to be the biggest threat for Islam right now. Especially when I saw the Paul Hughes against Usman fight, he actually showed that like the Nurmagomedov school is well a little bit like I'm not gonna say they're falling off
yeah.
because they're like the top school in the world, but they're
They're
mortal.
beatable.
Like yeah, they're beatable. Like and I think if Paul Hughes can, I thought he did enough to get it done. Um, and I think Ilya can definitely get it done because he's like more experienced. He has like a little bit more power than Paul. I think. I
Yeah.
haven't trained or sparred with Paul, so I can't say that. But like I sparred with Ilya, and that guy hits hard, and he's precise, and he's really, really sure of himself. So I think he could get it done.
And do you feel like what's probably dragging the MMA community down is just the fans are just liking to just cry robbery when it doesn't go their way? Like you, I
Yeah.
had Paul Shoes winning that fight, but going on
Hmm.
social media, everyone was just like, "That's a robbery. That's a robbery." However,
I wasn't a robbery.
you can make a case for Usman getting
Yeah.
that.
To be fair, it wasn't a robbery. I think it could have. Yeah. I think if you would give it to Usman, yeah, look, it's fine too. Um, I'm looking at it like I'm scoring it obviously like a little bit more like a fan than actually like a judge. And I think like as a fan, I thought like Paul did enough. Uh, but it wasn't a robbery, like it wasn't a
Yeah,
robbery. Like, but I do think he can get it done in the rematch because now he knows what he has to do. And I think the fight was like uh trending towards his way a little bit more than it was trending towards Usman's way.
and what did you make of Usman coming back out saying he needs to win three fights before he fights me again?
That's of course rubbish, or like that's like a little bit of a cop out. I think.
Yeah,
I think he just knows like this is yeah a very difficult fight for him, and he's just trying to like yeah like try to avoid it.
exactly.
Obviously, he's not scared. Nobody is scared, like but. There are people that are trying to be more tactical, like and the Nurmagomedov school, like they're known for being very tactical with their matchups.
Exactly. And thank you for coming on today. I know that you'll do fantastic on Cave Wars 183 against Ruggeri. I'll be able to get that stoppage. Is
Thank you.
there anything you're wanting to add or anyone you're wanting to shout out?
No, just shout out my team, Root MMA. We got a lot of guys coming up the ranks, and want to give a big shout out to all of the fighters. They know who they are. No need to name all of them, but you'll hear more and more about us coming soon.
Thank you very much, and I know you do fantastic.